June 1944. Europe lay crushed under the iron heel of the Third Reich. From the beaches of France to the gates of Moscow, darkness. One man had swallowed an entire continent, and the world had only one chance to stop him. This is that story. Before a single soldier could set foot on French soil, someone had to keep the sea lanes open. For 3 years, Nazi submarines hunted Allied ships in the North Atlantic. Millions of tons of food, fuel, and weapons sat at the bottom of the ocean floor. But the Allies fought back. Destroyer escorts, air patrols, sonar, radar, sacrifice. Slowly, painfully, the Atlantic was wrestled from Hitler's grip. Without that victory at sea, D-Day would have been impossible. In the war rooms of London, generals bent over maps. Every river, every beach, every minefield was studied, obsessively, for 2 full years. General Dwight D. Eisenhower took command of the greatest military force ever assembled in human history. 3 million men, 11,000 aircraft, 7,000 ships, all aimed at 5 narrow beaches on the coast of Normandy, France. The plan was codenamed Operation Overlord, and failure was not an option. The night before the invasion, soldiers wrote letters home. Some would never be sent. Young men, farmers, students, mechanics, teachers, now stood at the edge of history. In the darkness, thousands of ships moved silently across the English Channel. The sea was rough, the sky was overcast. Many men were sick. All of them were afraid. By dawn, everything would change. At 6:30 in the morning, the ramps dropped. Omaha Beach, the most heavily defended stretch of sand in the history of warfare. Men fell before they even reached the shore. The water turned red. Machine gun fire swept the beach like a deadly harvest. Commanders watching from offshore feared the entire operation would collapse. But the soldiers kept coming, wave after wave, climbing over their fallen brothers. By nightfall, they held the beach, at a cost no one dared to count. For weeks, the Allies were pinned down in the hedgerows of Normandy, fighting meter by meter through ancient walls of earth and stone. Then, on July 25th, Operation Cobra. American bombers carpet-bombed German lines, and General Patton's Third Army exploded through the gap. Tanks raced across France at speeds that left supply lines behind. Maps became useless. The army had literally gone off the map. The liberation of Western Europe had begun. On August 25, 1944, Paris was free. For 4 years, the City of Light had lived in silence and fear. Now, its streets exploded in joy. Women kissed soldiers. Men wept in the streets. Church bells rang for the first time since the Nazi flag had flown over the Eiffel Tower. It was a moment the world had prayed for, and the moment Hitler had dreaded. Operation Market Garden, the largest airborne operation in history. 35,000 paratroopers dropped behind enemy lines in Holland, aiming to capture key bridges and end the war by Christmas. But at Arnhem, the bridge too far, they ran straight into SS Panzer divisions. For 9 days, British paratroopers fought alone, surrounded and running out of ammunition. Only 2,400 of the original 10,000 made it back alive. The war would not end by Christmas. December 1944. Hitler had one final card to play. In the frozen forests of the Ardennes, he launched his last great offensive, a massive surprise attack designed to split the Allied armies in 2. In the first 48 hours, American lines buckled and broke. Thousands were captured. Entire divisions were cut off in the snow. But at the town of Bastogne, The 101st Airborne Division refused to surrender. Surrounded on all sides, with no food, no ammunition, and no hope, their commander replied to a German surrender demand with one word: nuts. 3 weeks later, the Bulge was erased. But 75,000 Americans lay dead, wounded, or captured. The Rhine River was Germany's last great natural barrier. Hitler had ordered it held, to the last man. Then, by pure luck, American troops captured the Remagen bridge intact. Soldiers sprinted across under fire. Engineers worked desperately to keep the structure from collapsing. Within days, the entire Allied army was pouring into the heart of Germany. The end was near. As Allied armies swept through Germany, they stumbled upon something that defied human comprehension. Bergen-Belsen, Buchenwald, Dachau. Factories of death, mountains of bodies. Human beings reduced to skeletons, still alive, but barely. Soldiers who had seen combat, who had watched their friends die, broke down and wept. These were not casualties of war. These were the victims of pure evil. The world would never be the same again. On April 25, 1945, American and Soviet soldiers met at the Elbe River. The Third Reich was cut in two. On May 8th, Germany surrendered. The guns fell silent. After 2,076 days of war, it was over. More than 400,000 Americans had died, over 1 million Allied soldiers, tens of millions of civilians. But Europe was free. These men didn't fight for glory. They didn't fight for medals. They fought so that their children, and their children's children, would never have to face what they had faced. They succeeded, and the world owes them a debt that can never be repaid. Remember them.